Hi, my name is Allie Burr, and this is my persuasive speech, and this is my audience. College is the experience of a lifetime. People go to college for many different reasons, hopefully mostly to get an education, but people go to college to find themselves. They go to college to make lifelong relationships. They find the friends that are going to be in their weddings, and most of all, they get to have this experience one time only. And so as we're getting an education, there's a lot of different factors that come into play while we're getting our education. For example, living costs, tuition costs, and one thing that just adds to all of it, textbook costs. According to a study done by Gallup in October of 2016, college admission directors found that over half of public applicants to college are deterred by the cost of textbooks and deterred by the cost of overall tuition. And so privately, over 85% of private applicants are deterred just by debt alone. That's a ton of college students who could possibly be getting their bachelor's degree that are not going strictly because it costs too much. Tuition itself is a ton of money, and you just add textbooks right on top of that, and it just becomes too much for a student to bear. So today I will uncover why textbooks are so expensive, some alternatives that might possibly work, and what you can do to create change on campus so that textbooks can be lowered in cost. Textbooks are so expensive because professors dictate that you have to have a specific edition of a textbook, and it has to be a specific publication date, and a lot of times the publishers they have the lock on the market. And so according to Matthew Segal from a Business Insider article written in August of 2015, quote, he says, "That means they're able to drive up the prices without fear of market competitors," unquote. So basically, these publishers have the lock on us as students that we can't go other places to find these textbooks. They have to be the sole proprietors, and they drive up the for us because they know there's no other competition. We are the consumers, and they're the sole providers of these textbooks. And I've seen the price difference between editions personally when I'm buying textbooks. For example, when I was in pre-calculus, I had a textbook that my professor wanted the 6th edition, and and the 5th edition was $50 cheaper. However, there wasn't the correct information that my professor required, so I had to spend an extra $50 for the 6th edition of a textbook, and $50 for me is a fifth of a month's rent, half of a phone bill, and that makes a huge difference in my monthly budgets. And I can only imagine what $50 will go for other students also. And I compared those prices of those textbooks on Amazon, and it's still a 5th edition pre-calculus textbook would be $47. The 6th edition is $105. That is a $50 difference for a year's worth of different information. So now that we've talked about why textbooks are expensive, let's discuss some alternatives that might be successful in lowering these costs. So first of all, alternatives exist, but not all of them work, and not all of them are compatible with your university, and specifically Washburn University in general. So open source textbooks are, according to Emanuela Grinberg in a CNN article published in April 2014, quote, "Course materials are offered for free online by their authors under a non-restrictive license," end quote. Which basically means the textbooks are online, available for you to use, but not all of them are. Authors have to give sole permission for that textbook to be published online for you to be able to use it. The kicker here is that professors do not always want you to use those. Professors are very specific in what they want you to use, and a lot of times it's not the free stuff. They want you to go out and buy this specific textbook because they've created their specific curriculum over this textbook. So it seems for students that there's really no wiggle room when it comes to open source if your professor really wants you to use this specific textbook. What most students do are shop around and they try and find the best prices online, or they'll rent or even buy an ebook, which is not always the best because the costs will still pile up. Now that we've discussed why they're expensive, some alternatives that aren't always successful, now we're going to talk about what you can do to combat and create change in lowering textbook prices. The biggest thing that us as students can do is seek out where you can have your voice heard. Washburn Student Government Association is an excellent way to have your voice heard. They're already advocating for textbook prices to be lowered, and so as students, we can utilize that platform. We can go to our student senators and say, hey, we're passionate about this, let's create change. Jim Henry is the current vice chairman of the allocations committee, and I talked to him in a personal interview this last week, and we were talking about that WSGA is working on price matching with the Ichabod shop. And so you as a student, you can go and support these efforts, support these conversations that they're having with these different on-campus departments. They're also encouraging professors to write their own textbooks, which would only cost the students the price of printing. So $20 for your textbook, $15 for your textbook, and that's all you would have to pay. Start having conversations with your instructors. Your education matters to you, and so it's time for us to take control of our education. Tell your instructors that you're passionate about this, and maybe they'd be willing to let you use an open source textbook. Even write a letter to the editor of the Washburn Review. Get your voice out there and get your voice heard. This is our campus, and we have the responsibility to make the change if we feel passionate about it. College is hard enough, and financial stress makes everything worse. So textbooks do not need to be as expensive as they are, and we can do something about that. Today we talked about how publishers have a hold on the market. We talked about some alternatives that you can seek out, and we talked about how we as students can create that change to make that happen. Easing this cost of textbooks is one weight off of our shoulders as students, and then if we can focus on our education and not have to worry about these extra things like cost of textbooks, maybe we can get more people across the stage when it's time to graduate. Thank you. And this is my audience.